Stop. Just stop for a second. If you are someone who has ever opened a stock trading app, looked at a list of company names and thought, okay, which one of these do I pick? I need you to hear me out before you do anything else. Because I've been there, and I made the mistakes, and nobody warned me. So consider this me warning you. I'm not going to sit here and tell you the stock market is scary or that you should never invest. That's not what this is. I actually think investing is one of the most important things a person can do for their financial future. But there's a version of investing that builds wealth, and there's a version that quietly destroys it. And the terrifying part is that from the outside, they look almost identical. Both involve opening an account. Both involve buying stocks. Both involve watching numbers go up and down on a screen. The difference is what's happening underneath. And that's exactly what we're going to talk about today.
So let me tell you what actually happened to me. A while back, I got really excited about the stock market. I'd been reading about it, watching videos, following finance accounts online, and at some point, I convinced myself that I understood enough to just start picking stocks. I had a list. I had logic. Company A was in a growing industry. Company B had just released a product I personally liked. Company C, honestly, I'd seen it trending on social media, and it felt like the moment. And for a little while, it felt amazing. Some of those picks went up. I felt smart. I felt like I had figured something out that other people hadn't. And then the market shifted, and my picks didn't just go down a little, they went down a lot. And the worst part wasn't the money. The worst part was sitting there realizing I had no idea why they went down. I had no real framework. I was just guessing with real money and calling it investing. That experience changed how I think about this completely.
Here's the thing nobody tells you when you first start getting interested in stocks. Stock picking feels like skill. It genuinely does. You research a company, you form a view, the stock goes up. Your brain immediately connects those two things and tells you that you did something smart. That's called the illusion of skill, and it's one of the most dangerous things in personal finance. Because here's the actual data, and I want you to really sit with this. Study after study, over decades, across markets all over the world, has shown that the vast majority of professional fund managers, people who do this full time, who have teams of analysts, who have access to information and tools that you and I will never have, the vast majority of them fail to beat a simple index fund over a 10-year period. Let that sink in. The professionals, with all their resources, failing to beat a basic index. So what does that tell you about what happens when a regular person sits down on a Sunday afternoon, does a bit of research on Google, and decides to pick stocks based on what feels right? It's not that you're not smart. It's that the game is genuinely, provably, almost impossible to win consistently, even for the people whose entire career it is. Now, I know what some of you are thinking. You're thinking, but I know someone who did really well picking stocks. Maybe that someone is you. Maybe you had a run of great picks, and you're sitting there wondering if this video even applies to you. And I want to be honest with you about this. Yes, some people have great runs picking stocks. Some people have great runs at a casino too. The question is never whether it worked once. The question is whether it works consistently, over time, across different market conditions, in a way that you can actually rely on to build real wealth. And the evidence, not my opinion, the actual data, says that consistent outperformance through individual stock picking is so rare that statistically, most of what looks like skill is actually luck with a good story attached to it. That's not me being negative. That's just what the numbers say.
So let's talk about what actually works. And this is the part I wish someone had explained to me in plain language years ago. There's a concept called passive investing. And the basic idea is this. Instead of trying to pick which individual companies will do well, you just buy a tiny piece of every company. All of them, across the whole market. This is what index funds do. An index fund basically says, we're not going to try to beat the market, we're just going to be the market. When the overall economy grows, you grow with it. When it dips, you dip. But you never get completely wiped out by one bad bet on one company.
And the results of this approach, over long periods of time, are genuinely remarkable. Not because of any clever strategy or timing, just because of consistency, time, and the power of compound growth. Warren Buffett, and I know everyone quotes Warren Buffett, but stay with me here. Warren Buffett, one of the greatest investors of all time, has repeatedly said that for most people, a simple low-cost index fund is the best investment they can make. Not individual stocks, not complex strategies. An index fund. When the person who arguably knows the most about picking stocks tells regular people not to pick stocks, that's worth paying attention to. But here's where it gets interesting. And this is the part that I think most finance content skips over. The reason people keep picking stocks isn't because they haven't heard about index funds. Most people have. The reason they keep picking stocks is psychological. Index funds are boring. There's nothing exciting about them. You can't tell a story about them at dinner. You can't post about your index fund pick and get people hyped up. There's no moment of genius. No thrill of being right. No story of how you saw something coming that everyone else missed. Stock picking gives you that. It gives you a narrative. It makes you feel like an active participant in your own financial life, rather than just someone who set up an automatic contribution and forgot about it. And that feeling, that sense of involvement and excitement and being smart, costs people a lot of money. I've talked to people who know intellectually that index funds are likely to outperform their stock picks over time, and they still can't stop picking stocks because the boring truth doesn't satisfy the same psychological need that the exciting story does. That's the real trap. Not lack of knowledge, the feeling. So what do you actually do with this? First, if you already have money in individual stocks, I'm not saying panic and sell everything. That's not financial advice, and that's not what I'm getting at. What I'm saying is, before you make your next stock pick, ask yourself honestly, am I doing this because I have a genuine edge, or am I doing this because it feels good? Most of the time, if you're honest with yourself, the answer is the second one. Second, learn what an index fund actually is before you dismiss it as boring. Understand what you're actually buying. Understand the fee structure, the historical performance, the difference between different types. It's not as complicated as it sounds, and 5 hours of genuine learning will give you more than 500 hours of stock research. Third, understand the role of time. This is the piece that genuinely transforms the way you think about investing. The stock market in the short term is unpredictable. Genuinely, nobody knows what's happening next week or next month. But in the long term, over 10, 20, 30 years, the historical direction of broad market indices has been consistently upward. Not every year, not without painful dips, but the trend over long periods has been growth. And compound growth over a long time period does something that feels almost unbelievable when you first see the numbers. A modest, consistent return on a modest, consistent investment, left alone for long enough, becomes something genuinely significant. The people who build real wealth from investing are almost never the ones who made the brilliant stock pick. They're the ones who started early, stayed consistent, and didn't let the excitement of picking individual stocks pull them away from a boring strategy that quietly worked in the background. I want to be real with you about one more thing before we wrap this up. I'm not here to tell you that individual stock picking can never work, or that every person who invests in individual companies is making a mistake. Some people genuinely study this deeply, understand what they're doing, invest only money they can afford to lose, and approach it with the seriousness it deserves. That's different from what most people do. Most people pick stocks the way I did, based on vibes, trending news, products they personally like, or tips from someone who seemed confident. And that version of stock picking is statistically likely to underperform over time.
The goal of this video isn't to make you feel bad about decisions you've already made. The goal is just to give you a clearer picture before you make the next one. Because the most expensive financial mistakes are almost never dramatic. They're quiet. They're made gradually, over years, by smart people who were just working with an incomplete picture. And now, you have a slightly more complete one.
That's what this channel is about. Not get-rich-quick schemes, not secret strategies. Just honest, clear conversations about how money actually works, so you can make decisions that actually serve your future, instead of just your excitement right now. If that's the kind of conversation you want more of, you already know what to do. And I'll see you in the next one.